take the time to check out the meeting minutes from last month and the agenda from this month, and then we'll go ahead and vote on those before we start the fun. All right, folks, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from last month? If so, does anyone have any substantive changes to the minutes from last month? No? Good job, Sarah. All right. And so I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the July 2013 Human Rights Commission meeting. So moved. Second.
Sorry, who moved?
Amy moved. All in favor of accepting the minutes as written, show of hands and an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passed. And we have updated agenda, from Jeff today. Thank you, Jeff. Does anybody have any proposed changes to the agenda? Is that a yes, Amy?
It's a yes.
Okay.
Hi. That we just replace 6 with 7. and
Excuse me?
And 7 with 6, reverse 6 and 7, in order for us to see the progress on HRC communications and action before we review the bylaws. I think that will inform bylaws changes.
Okay. I don't have any opposition to that. What I'll do is have you move to amend, and then we will vote on the motion as amended, or the agenda as amended. Does anybody else have any amendments to the agenda? No?
I move to amend the agenda by scheduling HRC communications just before bylaws update.
And do we have a second to Amy's motion to accept the agenda as amended by switching items 6 and 7?
Second.
All in favor of said motion, show of hands and an aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right. Welcome everybody to the August 2013 meeting of the Human Rights Commission. First of all, I want to acknowledge that our food was provided today by Hush Hush Mediterranean Restaurant in downtown Portland. Thank you all very much. Thanks, Jeff and Sarah, for making that happen for us. And welcome everybody who is joining us today. What I'd like to do is just have everybody go around the table quickly and introduce themselves. And we'll start with our new commissioner, one of our new commissioners, Linda McKim-Bell.
Linda McKim-Bell here.
Diallo Bennett, Commissioner.
Kyle Vesey, Commissioner.
Emily Good, Commissioner. Emmanuel Price, Commissioner.
Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you. Alan Lazo, Commissioner.
Amy Samara, Commissioner.
Sam Sachs, Commissioner.
Welcome, Sam.
Jeff Selby, staff.
Sarah Belair, volunteer.
Maya Verla, Commissioner.
And Mike, can we start with you as an introduction in the gallery?
Hello, I'm Mike Tabor, and I'm filming as Joey Benny and filming for independent media.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Chad Stover. I'm a policy advisor to Mayor Hales. It's nice to meet you.
My name is Michael Moore. I'm a health advocate at Sisters of the Road.
I'm Patrick Philpott. I work in the Office of Equity and Human Rights with the Portland Commission on Disability.
Lavon Whisker, Portland Commission on Disability.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Before we move on to the next item on the agenda, I just want to acknowledge Sarah Miller, who has been with us this entire summer and has helped out tremendously, including with the Human Rights Roundtable event that was such a big hit in June. We're losing Sarah, unfortunately, after this month. She's moving back up to Seattle, and we're all very sad about that. And we're going to do our best to lobby the OVHR to offer her a highly paid full-time position.
We'll just reach into that closet with money.
That's right. So thank you, Sarah, very much for all your work. We really appreciate it very much. And just as we have a valued member of our team departing, we have 3 new valued members of our team joining us today. We actually have 4 new commissioners who have been approved by council. Sanji unfortunately isn't able to make it today. She's dealing with the loss of her grandmother, and so she'll be with us in September for the first time. But I want to formally welcome Linda McKim-Bell, Emmanuel Price, and Sam Sachs to the table. Thank you all very much for your willingness to volunteer your time. I hope you'll find it valuable, as I hope we all do. I know I do. And we hope to take up as much of your time as we possibly can. We need you. And what I'd like to do is maybe just have you all introduce yourselves to us. I think we've met you generally. I actually haven't met Emmanuel except for once briefly, just a handshake. And so if we could just maybe have each of you introduce yourselves, and then we'll do a little bit of an orientation. So Linda, would you like to start?
Yes, what would that introduction involve?
Just tell us who you are and take a
Okay.
few minutes and
Well, I'm a
what do you want us to know about
retired,
you?
I'm a retired English as a second language bilingual and library teacher. And upon my retirement from teaching, I worked with several immigrant communities to improve education for our immigrant students in public school systems. And then recently I just left the position as regional coordinator for the Unitarian Universal Service Committee, a human rights organization, projects here in the U.S. and abroad. And I've been a volunteer with this commission and enjoy my work very much. Thank you.
And what made you want to be a human rights commissioner?
Well, I love the city of Portland, where I've always lived since I was a little girl. And the prospect of serving and helping the city meet its human rights goals really seemed to bring together so many of my lifelong interests, even stretching from early childhood.
Well, thank you very much for being here. Welcome. Emmanuel, you want to go next? Just give us an intro.
My name is Emmanuel Price. Thanks for having me, everybody. Where do I start? So I am the executive director of a nonprofit called SCAPE, which means Second Chances Are for Everyone. That whole mission is to reduce recidivism by employing, empowering, and educating men after they get out of incarceration when they transition into society. I formerly worked for CIO as a racial justice policy advocate. I start a new job Monday with Common Cause doing juvenile justice reform. I'm a Portland native, born and raised here. Saving Beaumont and Grant are the schools I went to. And I would love, well, I'm actually glad to be a Human Rights Commissioner because I really believe in equality and social justice and the common good for everybody. And I feel I would be doing my part if I didn't reach back and help somebody. Primarily, I'm from this area, so I've seen a lot of changes over the last 10 to 15 to 20 years. And I just feel like I have a duty to uphold to myself and my family and to the Portland Oregonians. So this is the right fit for me, and however I can be used, I will definitely be used. So use my time, because I'm definitely going to use this as a stepping stone to kind of just work for it and work, like I said, for the common good of people. And I know some of you guys, I know it's a really good team, so I'm looking to glean and learn from everybody, and just glad to be here.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Sam?
Hi, I'm Sam Sachs, and I guess the best way to describe me is a racial justice activist. I've been speaking out about racial issues for quite some time. Probably one of the first times was when I was actually in the police academy back in '96, and I was subjected to anti-Semitism, and I spoke out against the treatment that I received at the police academy. And that really kind of started me on my path to speaking out and talking about human rights and civil rights and, you know, racial justice in the community in Oregon. Had the opportunity to serve with Abel Bordley her last term as a senator when I was going to Portland State, getting my degree in Black Studies. And then she actually encouraged me to go back to the academy that I experienced that anti-Semitism at and teach diversity. So I taught diversity there for a year. Some of the things I've done with my activism work is I passed a law requiring minority interviewing in college sports here in Oregon. And been working on the Native American mascot issue for the last 2 years. Last year we convinced the Board of Education to eliminate mascots. And this year we convinced the governor to veto the bill that the legislators put through to overturn that. So I'm excited to be a part of this because my grandparents were Jewish immigrants from Lithuania in the 50s, and they called Portland their home. And for me to be a part of this board, this body, and to give back to Portland, because Portland gave so much to my family, it's just an honor to be able to speak up for people who are less fortunate, whether it be the homeless, mentally ill, gay and lesbian, whoever it is, and to be that voice for so many people. And the other thing too is that, having worked in law enforcement for a while, I think I have an understanding of how law enforcement works. And my goal has been, since I left law enforcement, was to try to bridge that gap between our, communities of color and law enforcement, try to make a better community. So I'm very excited about this opportunity.
Sam's also our new member of the Community and Police Relations Committee.
Yes.
Well, welcome. Thank you very much for serving, and we look forward to having you. Thank you all very much for volunteering.
If I could do a manual with Sam for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes after the meeting, so let's go.
Great. And welcome, Abdul. It's so good to see you. Another new commissioner. So what I'd like to do is just introduce ourselves to the three of you and introduce you to the committees and task forces that have been formed on the commission here, so that you're aware of the kinds of things that we're involved in currently. I know that some of you probably know most of this, but I think one thing that we haven't done in the past is when the commissioners have come on to sort of give a little bit of an orientation on where we are and what kind of things we're up to. And so I'm going to ask the chairs of the committees to introduce themselves and give you an idea of what our committees and task forces are working on. And so you have an opportunity, because we only meet once a month as a commission, and that can be really, really hard when it comes to getting things done at the commission level. And so what we have, I think, been successful in doing recently is getting a lot of work done in between meetings through the work of our committees and task forces. And so, try to identify the, and I know, Linda, you're already on a committee, and Sam, you're already on CPRC, but Emmanuel, you said use you, and we will. Be careful about what we wish for. Why don't we just start with, well, Danita's not here, but Alan, would you feel comfortable just giving an update on, what CPRC, or just giving an introduction to CPRC?
So, the Community and Police Relations Committee is one of the major subcommittees of the Human Rights Commission. It's a 15-member subcommittee that is made up of 5 human rights commissioners, 5 community members, and 5 Portland Police Bureau officers, or Portland Police Bureau members. They are of various ranks. We have some folks that are from the command staff, some folks that are sergeants, and at different levels as far as the police bureau members. And the mission of the CPRC is to bring together members of the community, including the HRC members and police, to help greater increase the relationship between the police bureau and the community. And so I really see it as a very different space than a lot of other places that police and the community come together here in Portland. It's a space where we have created this respectful dialogue and informed perspectives. And so we try to protect that space pretty carefully with the folks that are there in the room, both from the community side and from the police bureau side. Everybody who comes to that table understands what we're trying to accomplish. It's not a place where we're coming to yell at one another and force our perspectives on one another, but really a place where we can bring forward issues and help each other understand the perspectives of both groups. So it's been a long time coming. This committee was actually assigned to the Human Rights Commission as the former racial profiling committee. That was the result of Chief Sizer's work around racial profiling. So that committee morphed into the CPRC, and its mission is still around that plan to address racial profiling, but it's also expanded to work with staff. The big project that we're undertaking right now is an internal police bureau and equity training around equity that's focused on institutional racism. So we have helped the bureau. It was initiated by bureau members that are on the committee. We're working side by side with them to help design the curriculum. It's a very specific curriculum to the Portland Police Bureau. It's based in part on the work that's being done by the Racial and Social Justice Initiative in Seattle, which, by the way, had great resistance from its own police bureau around this kind of work. So it's modeled after work that was being done there, but tailored to help Portland police officers understand the history around Portland, its development, about communities, and just overall institutional racism. So that work is part of the Bureau's got a 5-year strategic plan that work is part of. This past spring, I would say 40 members of the command staff went through the training, and the goal is to have all of the sworn Bureau members go through the training by the end of 2014. And so next round will be the sergeants. There, I think there are 7. I'm not going to put the number down. There's going to be 5 days of training. So there's about 120 sergeants that are going to go through the training in November, and we're working to help design that and help them run that training. So that's what's happening with Enact CPRC. And the 5 HRC members are myself, Sam, Abdul, Damon, and Donita Fry, who's not here tonight, as the chair.
Does anybody have any questions about CPRC for Al? What do you need?
We meet the third Wednesday of the month at 4:30. We're currently based in
Kellyville.
the Penumbra Kelly Building on East Burnside and 42nd, 7th. But we also, just like this body, are hoping to meet out in the community on approximately a quarterly basis. So we'll have one of those out meetings for the CPRC coming up in the fall.
All right. And if anybody has any interest in CPRC, it's not open for business, or not open for membership, new members at this point.
That's right. The CPRC isn't. There are several subcommittees of the subcommittee and work groups of the subcommittee that are working on equity training, and I think we're going to take on some new work. So there may be opportunities actually for other members to get involved there.
And the meetings are public, just like this meeting, so everyone's invited to attend.
Yeah. I would suggest that at some point, if you're interested in that work, to attend the meeting, see who's there, understand the dialogue around the room.
Thank you very much. And the Community Discovery Committee is a committee that was formed after we engaged in our strategic planning sessions last summer. And who wants to talk about that? Myra's going to talk about CDC.
Yeah, so it's a Community Discovery Committee, and the actual members right now is Linda, Yellow, Amy, and myself. And we have, in a way, a non-traditional way of organizing ourselves. We don't necessarily, we just decided that we'll have a chair for organizational purposes, but it's not like one person is just the one leading. It's the 4 of us on equal basis. We make the decisions and have equal capacity to take on tasks and stuff like that. So this is more for like bylaws, compliance, right? But this committee is, our main purpose is basically to be in the community through organizing events. We just put together the Human Rights Roundtable, and pretty much all the commission was involved in different points, and almost everybody was there and participated and had a certain role. So although it's the four of us organizing the main tasks, we're always gonna be looking for ways to engage the rest of the commission to be there and provide input or play a specific role. So it's all of us at the end of the day present. And we just did the Human Rights Roundtable in June, but then another one of our main tasks is going to be organizing community forums. So the roundtable was mostly focused for human rights organizations that were focused on systemic changes in policy advocacy in similar arenas or areas. But the public forums are really going to be targeted towards the community as a whole, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more detail about that once we get this to the CDC report. But that is coming in the fall, and the ultimate goal from our committee is to gather information, feedback, identifying gaps in the community and the organizations that we can create some sort of report or something that helps inform the HRC efforts, especially for the policy committee. And then we can start kind of looping things around where the HRC work is related or in partnership with or in alignment with existing and current work from in human rights issues in program. So I don't know if you guys have anything else to add.
Well done.
And,
So, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't.
Questions, honestly, any of the four of us, but
So who is the chair then?
me, but
Okay.
it's more for organizational purposes and
Okay. So just real quick, I have a list of the committee rosters and liaisons that everyone should have. And as we're just going through things, if you have any corrections that need to be made, like that one I just made, just let me know, please, about any of the commissions and committees. Excuse me.
And is membership in the CDC open currently?
we just recently discussed that, and because the CDC, as now with Linda, and now that we have a very refined and they kind of laser-focused approach, we would like to keep it closed until January, so we go through the process together and get the hang of things and build a solid foundation for the work moving forward. In January, we'll kind of revisit and say, okay, where are we? How how would it fit? And what's the intent of adding more commissioners versus just keeping it closed, maybe figuring out some like cycles where, somebody steps out but somebody can come in, but still figuring out like specific opportunities for the rest of the commission to be engaged or be a volunteer or attend. The meetings are open for everybody, so it's not like secret. So if anybody's ever interested in attending and with the same.
So we can't have a quorum.
Right, no more than 3 more.
Right.
No
But-
more than 2 more.
First come, first serve.
Yeah. And then you
Right,
can't,
so
yeah,
it's not like
then
it's
there's
secretive or like exclusive at all, it's just for the purposes of our own organization, we would like to keep it like that at least until the summer.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. If we're going to have a quorum, then that means it has to be noted as a public meeting.
And it has to be announced
It's
a
not
week
that-
in advance.
It's not that you can't do it, it's just that if you do, you have to follow
Exactly.
the public meeting.
Right.
Thank you. So, which is what the CPRC does.
Which is, can we have a quick review of what that would be?
Well, CPRC it's not because of a quorum, it's because it's a body that can make recommendations on policy. So that's the distinction for CPRC. There's only 5 HRC members.
But in addition, if we did have a quorum expected at for example, a CDC meeting, then you would need to comply with public meetings laws in order to, and you would do that by noticing the meeting, is it a week in advance?
So currently, we don't have to.
Right.
Well, and the thing with us is we don't have set meeting time, so basically we meet as needed. So now we're starting to meet again once a week because of the forum we're thinking of. But then once that is done, then we'll slow back and maybe once or twice a month. So it's more a matter of checking with any of us and we'll let you know the minutes and things.
And my clarification wasn't specifically for CDC, it was just any committee in general. Be mindful of your numbers, and if you are gonna get to a quorum level, check with Jeff and Kyle, so make sure that we're doing the proper approach.
Okay, so thank you, CDC. The next committee I would ask for information on would be the policy committee. Ashley is the chair, she's not here today, and I'm a member of the committee, and the other member is John Pursue. The policy committee, so I'll just give a little update and introduction to the policy committee. The policy committee is intended, well, has been created to enhance HRC efforts in the policy arena. So from trying to participate in the legislative agenda of the city to looking at city action and the policies of the city that implicate human rights. Our position is to look at those policies through a human rights lens, which is one of in the founding documents of the Human Rights Commission, one of the areas that was noticed by the commission that was gathered to research whether a Human Rights Commission was even necessary, came to the conclusion that there wasn't a body in the city of Portland that looked at policy through a human rights lens. And so that's one of the reasons that the commission was created. And when we went back through the strategic planning process, we wanted to make sure that our strategic plan included efforts to meet those needs and to address those shortfalls. So that's what the Public Policy Committee was created to do. The Policy Committee, sorry, is it the Public Policy Committee? No, it's just the Policy Committee. We are open for membership, and we encourage anybody who wants to participate to let Ashley know. She's the chair, but you could also let me or John know. It's not that formal. So if you're interested in joining us, we would love to have you, and we don't have any limitations on membership currently. So does anybody have any questions about what's going on with policy currently? What do you guys meet? We don't have a set schedule currently. We're sort of meeting as needed right now, but it's at least once a month. And so if you're interested, just let me know and I'll put you on. Yeah. Okay. Great. We have what really probably you would think theoretically doesn't have to be an ongoing committee, but it sort of has become an ongoing committee, and that's the nominations committee. It's certainly not something that happens only once a year, and so Malloy is the chair of the nominating committee, although he's currently recusing himself from the duties. But for purposes of explaining the nominating committee, I think that you're in safe territory.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm the chair of the nominating committee. Currently, we are made up of myself, Diallo, Myra, and Alan. We are looking for 2 more members, and I suppose I should explain what we do and how we do it before I start asking for volunteers again. But what we do is whenever there is a vacancy or the terms of commissioners are up, we evaluate. We're the ones that do the outreach with a lot of help, but we're the point people for doing outreach about a vacancy, collecting the applications, reviewing them, interviewing people. So everybody, with the exception of Abdul and myself, has gone through this process as an applicant. And then recommending to the full commission who we think would make a good commissioner, and bringing forward those names and getting permission to vote to nominate them. Then it moves to city council, and there's a whole other process that Jeff's probably more versed with how that works. But then theory council confirms the nominations and you join the commission. The way that our terms are structured, every year there are 5 commissioners whose terms are going to expire. And what we have tried to achieve is 2 people from each class of commissioners to be on the nominating committee, so that when a particular class is up for reappointment, as the class of 2013 is now, of which I'm a member, those 2 commissioners can step aside from the nominating committee and allow the other 4 to independently evaluate their request for reappointment and not have to worry about, you know, there's any undue influence by a sitting commissioner who's also seeking reappointment. So we have 4, and we'll be looking for 2 more, but I'll probably just start drafting people at some point. So, anyway, if anyone has questions, please feel free to contact me or any of the other nominating committee members.
All right, next up would be the Human Trafficking Task Force. I'm the chair of the Human Trafficking Task Force, and it is made up of 3 human rights commissioners and 4 non-commissioners. The 3 human rights commissioners are myself, Amy, and Damon, who's not here today. And the non-commissioner members are Keith Bickford, who is the director of the Human Trafficking Task Force for Oregon, and he is a Multnomah County Sheriff's detective. He is also the co-founder of OATH, which is Oregonians Against Trafficking Humans, and is a directing force in the new federal Human Trafficking Task Force, the Oregon Foreign-Born Trafficking Task Force, which is run through the U.S. Attorney's Office. And so he is very well connected in the trafficking world on the good side. I should clarify that. Chris Kilmer is another non-commissioner member of the Human Trafficking Task Force, and he is I guess I would call him the Comprehensive Social Services Coordinator for trafficking victims at Immigration Counseling Service. They provide an incredible resource to survivors of trafficking, both domestic and foreign-born. And so Chris and Keith have been the 2 real trafficking experts in this area for years. They've been giving presentations like the one they gave to our commission in April of 2012 for years. And so they're invaluable resources. Natasha Hansberger is another member of the force. She is a Portland Police Bureau detective. Is she a detective? No, she's an officer. And she works with trafficking victims on the Portland Police Bureau. And then we have a new member, Irene Konav, who has just joined us, and she's provided a lot of help to us as well. She has been involved with the police oversight groups, I think with CPRC. CRC.
George Knight, in the Police Review Office, is a city employee.
Okay.
She's the outreach coordinator for IPR.
And she's been fantastic as well, and has insights that she's already been able to contribute and have been fantastic. Our 2 main projects that we're working on currently are an education and advocacy project based on identifying at-risk immigrant communities and mapping or creating a sort of a geographic location device so that we're able to reach out to those communities in culturally appropriate ways and educating them about the remedies and assistance that are available to trafficking survivors. And we're working with Multnomah County and the city on that. And then a more inward-looking policy function where we're going to be advocating for city and state legislation that will help trafficking victims and survivors in various ways, and also trying to advocate for any sort of legislation that will help to decrease the trafficking issues in this area. So, Amy, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay. We meet on the 4th Wednesday of the month, and it is open to additional members. We don't have a limit on membership. And so if you're interested in getting involved in the Human Trafficking Task Force, speak to me or Amy. Anybody else that I mentioned?
Is it 4th Wednesday?
4th Wednesday, it's at 5:30
Okay.
in the Multnomah County Building, 3rd floor. We meet in the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office that Keith Bickford provides for us. All right, and Housing Task Force.
Right, so I'm also the chair of the Housing Rights Task Force. We do not meet on a regular basis, but we meet on an as-needed basis, and then we need 2 meetings. Diallo and Allen are also on the task force with me. Damon has been on the task force, but he notified me today that due to time commitments, he has to step down from that. So we have plenty of room to add more people. Our focus is on, so far has been on ways to address the inequities in housing. In Portland, we worked on this past session, we worked on supporting the Section 8 anti-discrimination around Section 8 bill, and so we supported that, which was passed. We also supported a bill that would repeal the ban on inclusionary zoning, which is a tool that could allow more affordable housing in areas of high opportunity. And that unfortunately was defeated, but the work on that continues. And so we're still trying to set a date this month and talk about where things are going with the remaining IZ work, and then we'll begin discussing what new issues we want to try and get on. So.
All right. And are you open for membership?
Yep. In fact, I'm hoping that Alan and Diallo can talk briefly after, so we can set a date, and anyone who wants to join, just feel free to sit in with us.
So that gives you all an idea of what we've been up to and what our long-term projects look like currently. You know, one benefit to having such a diversity of interest on the Human Rights Commission is that we're able to tackle a diverse array of issues. And so if you have, if you've identified issues that you think should become projects of the commission, then those are things, that's how these have all started, and we try not to get too spread thin, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're addressing the issues that need to be addressed. So, that's what we're up to. One thing that, and we have to be relatively quick, and I know Jeff is going to give us a little online orientation here, but one thing that I've been asked by a number of new commissioners over the last few months has involved getting out into the community and what, as commissioners, we should be saying and what we should feel comfortable doing. And I'll just briefly say that you know, we're encouraged to get out in the community as human rights commissioners, wearing the pin, going to events, being visible in the community, because we want to increase our profile in the community. The only thing that we're expected to do is, first of all, obviously making sure that we are aware that we're representing, or that we are a representative of the Human Rights Commission, so we're acting appropriately. And also, the chair and the vice chair in the chair's absence are the only people who are authorized to just kind of to speak on behalf of the commission without going through a process for doing that. And so you're obviously, you're not prevented from speaking as a commissioner. As a commissioner, you're not prevented from speaking as an individual. Just we just need to make sure that when we do make statements that involve issues that the Human Rights Commission might be involved in, that we're saying, I'm not speaking on behalf of the commission. And I know Linda at one point asked when she was going to be introduced by somebody, can I be introduced as a Human Rights Commissioner? And absolutely, you can and should be introduced as a Human Rights Commissioner. I think that's great. We want to increase our visibility. It's just that then in the subsequent speech that you give, if that's the case, then you would want to say, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Human Rights Commission, I'm speaking on behalf of myself. And so that's just the kind of quick and dirty version of the commissioner in the community speech that I've been asked about a few times. And so I think that's where we land according to our bylaws. The bylaws are being amended but I think that's kind of the safe explanation of what we're free to say as commissioners. So, Jeff? Do you have a question about that?
Oh, yeah. So to that point, if we're out in the community and we, because I've been thinking, now that I'm a commissioner, I want to be out there in the community. I want to be a voice for people. I want people to know who I am so that they can come to me. So if I wanted to create a Facebook page, Sam Sachs, Human Rights Commissioner, I'd be okay to do that.
You can always introduce yourself as a human rights commissioner. You just can't speak on behalf of the Human Rights Commission. So a page like that, you'd want it to have on the front, I am a human rights commissioner. I'm proud to be a human rights commissioner. Please come to all of our meetings.
Right.
These are our committees and these are what we do. However, on this page, I am speaking as an individual.
Right.
So,
but at the same time, if I wanted to give information about things that we're doing.
you can always do that.
Yeah, and also we're always welcome to post on the HRC Facebook page, which is where we kind of want to be the water cooler for people on Facebook if they want to know more about the Human Rights Commission or hear from the Human Rights Commission. That's where we'd like to funnel people if possible.
And what about, this may sound crazy, but do we have shirts?
Shirts?
Yeah.
We don't have shirts. I don't think that sounds crazy.
Well, 'cause I
We
was
have
thinking,
buttons. Who's wearing a button today?
Linda.
Linda's got a button.
And name tags.
As I go out into community events, used to go as just a racial justice activist, but now it might seem to me to be more appropriate if I'm going to an event, say the Martin Luther King breakfast or something. If I had a shirt that said, Human Rights Commissioner, and that way people know who I am, but they know who we are, and they see us in the community, and we have that opportunity for them to approach us and say, hey, I've got this issue, whether it be around housing or whatever it is. But so I'm just thinking out loud about ways to make ourselves more visible in the community, and that's one of the things I was thinking as we go, out into these events.
Well, I think, and that's what name tags are for, certainly, the buttons. Jeff had some cards made up for the Human Rights Commission that we can pass out to people. But certainly, I think everybody's open to creative ideas about how we can enhance our profile. So I think Jeff is really the person to talk to about that kind of thing because he's responsible for getting our message out there.
I think that Alan and I have talked about promotional kinds of things because we just did a community event with CPRC. And we'd love to, I don't want to talk for Alan or speak for Alan, but I think it would be great to get you in the conversation as well because I think it is important that we remember the brand and the Human Rights Commission. So, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that...
Plus Alan's the budget guy too, so.
Yeah. And one of the things that we identified in our strategic plan for things that we really want and need to do is increase our visibility. That's one of the 4 pillars of the strategic plan. And so you're right there with us on that. So anybody else have any questions about that appearing in the community type thing?
I actually do. I put it on my LinkedIn. I didn't know that we needed a disclaimer though.
If you just have it on your LinkedIn as I am a Human Rights Commissioner, I don't think you do.
Yeah,
but if you have a
talking
page
about a
that's
specific page,
dedicated
Sam
to
Sachs, Human Rights Commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it on my LinkedIn too. And
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that can start a
I
website.
think,
I've already got my own.
I think, just the gut level thing is to look at it and say, if someone is reading this and doesn't know me, doesn't know the commission, will they think that I am speaking for the commission? Right. And if you think that might be the case, put the disclaimer. If you don't, like on, as one of your things on LinkedIn,
It's in my
bio, then I don't think it's that, So just take a look at it and then, ask Jeff, ask other people, does this look like it needs a disclaimer?
And we want it on LinkedIn. We want it on our company websites or whatever. I mean, we want to be increasing the visibility of the commission. So it's great to have that. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go over the website real quick. But first, this is the first time I've seen so many people not eating, and there's food over there, so come on.
I tend to take people's appetites away.
What are the perks? Okay, so to get to the Office of Equity and Human Rights website. If you're on the main Portland site, you can go to government bureaus and offices and go to the first equity and human rights you see. We're taking care of that other way. BTS is trying to, yeah, speaking of which,
Whoa.
which is the.
Whoa, what's up with that?
Oh, come on, I mean, what
Very
happened?
accusatory. Yeah.
It's a friendly point, but now you know why I take pictures at every meeting, because I want to make sure that we, you know, keep them up.
That's the only way.
I'm not sitting next to Kyle anymore.
You better sit
next to me.
Yeah, so, so, if you don't want to go through all that to get to us, you can always tell people, and it's on the cards as well, that you can go to portlandoregon.gov/OEHR/HRC. It'll take you right to the Human Rights Commission page. That first picture you see that pops up with Kyle will take you also to the Human Rights Commission page, or you can go to the tab. You, sir. That's the problem. Jeff, more food. Okay, so this is the landing page for Human Rights Commission. This is your page, and we can do whatever we want to do to. Why are you laughing? The Human Rights Commission.
Dave wants us to stop using that.
He said specifically the print piece, but I can take that off if we need to. So this is the landing page. It gets you, and I want to, I'll rotate these pictures. If you want me to add different ones or whatever, let me know. This page gives the meeting information, what the short piece on what the Human Rights Commission is all about. This piece right here is interesting. It's to join our email list. When you click that link, anyone who clicks that link and fills out the information will be added to our email contact list specifically for Human Rights Commission. So it puts it right into that database, and then you can receive, you'll receive whatever emails we end up putting out to the HRC community. Then we have a list of human rights commissioners. I think, going along with, I need to put a capital K in this name, my apologies. I think ideally, and it's up to you, again, as the commission, I think it would be great to have a short bio and a picture. I'll do an artist rendering if you don't want to do a picture. So people, again, know who you are when they see you out in the community. When at the MRG event, I got to see some commissioners, and it's just nice, I think, that people know who you are, and it would be great to get that together. So would anyone think that's not a good idea, or would not want to have that happen on the website? Okay. Then down below we have links to documents. We have the HRC library here that has bylaws, strategic plan. I guess the best thing about this website for me is that as the commission's doing the people's work, that it's transparent, and this is a resource that everyone can go to, human rights commissioners and the public, to find out more about the Human Rights Commission, look at the bylaws, look at the work in progress, the work plan, and all that kind of stuff. It's just easy access. I'd like to start filling in things for each of the committees, just so it lets people know. It's kind of really nice going around the room today, hearing from the different committees and task forces. And then on the left side here, we have links that from down below that I just showed you that will show up on at the top of the page as well. So as a commissioner, or as anybody in this room, if you say, hey, I need a copy of the bylaws, or I want a copy of whatever it may be, you can find that in the library, and if not, and by the way, you can always ask me for it, it's not like you can't, but if you can't find a document in there, or if there's a document you think that we need to have in there, because I know there are some that we don't have in there, please let me know. Community and Police Relations Committee, since it is such a robust committee, has has a page that has a lot of useful information on there as well, with all the information there. And again, since the CPRC is a committee that has a lot of interest in the community, there's a separate email list for the CPRC as well. And so that goes to a database that we use to email anybody who's interested in the CPRC.
Yeah, let me click through on that. Is there like a set of check boxes they can choose to be on CPRC, HRC all at the same time, or does it only put them on CPRC when they click that button? So I'm wondering if somebody came in through the HRC, if they also had a set of check boxes to see CPRC or whatever else.
I could put the CPRC link on the HRC, next to the HRC link if you'd like.
I just wasn't sure what mechanics. I'll click through it.
So yes, if they click on this one, it's just CPRC. It would be nice to have checkboxes. It integrates with our Emma system, so. So anyway, that's kind of the quick and dirty. I don't know if that's what you wanted to see or.
I think it's, yeah, I mean, none of us have really, I don't think, spent time seeing that and knowing what's going on there, so it looks really good. And do we need to get you any additional information that you would like?
Well, what I would ask the commission is to just take a look at the website. Let me know the kinds of things you see. You know, I love the questions that are like, hey, is this possible? And you know, I always like to try to find out some sort of solution to have it on there, because if you're asking, then someone else might be asking as well. Anything you see on that website that you think is you wonder why it's on there, or it shouldn't be on there, or you know, any information, please let me know. Yes.
Is there like a link for action requests on there? Or did you say that?
Oh, action requests. No, we should do that. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of those obvious ones that I didn't think of.
So just some quick history about that, that we had a spot for that on the previous site, and, but it was dismantled. And then when Dante arrived, he removed it. So we just might want to communicate.
Did you say what?
The issue was that there was no process for us to follow up on, and what it was for. It was a reporting process that went nowhere, basically.
Well, that's, okay, well, that, yeah, so that context makes sense that you didn't just shut it down.
She would,
Okay.
And so now that we have an action process model, I think it's going.
That, yeah, that action process model
Right.
is in process, but it's probably something we should leave into what we're looking at.
Well,
right.
As we launch that, maybe do a test run to see what kind of capacity we can meet.
Yeah. It'll be a link to an email, basically, an email address, so it'll go to me. And, but I think that's up to the commission to determine. If it's a process that is a defined process of what happens when someone does that, then I don't think we need to bring it up to anybody, you know, I don't think we need to bring it to Dante at all. It's the commission's, yeah.
I would just say, I want to be sure that we're ready to receive
Right.
and act on those requests really well and cleanly before we open something like that.
Absolutely. So
Yeah,
that's-
hopefully we'll have that ready to go in September, and then we'll be able to maybe concurrently, maybe in October, or something, have an opportunity to make sure that there aren't any flaws in the system.
That's why the function was the way.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing too with the Office of Equity and Human Rights website, is that people don't know that we're not a civil rights office. We don't field complaints, but we do want to make sure that we're sending people in the right direction if they have kinds of questions. So our file a complaint link, we have agencies that take care of, you know, all the things we can try to think of.
And
Human
perhaps-
Rights Commission should be on there as well.
And perhaps we can draft an explanation of what we can do right beside that. Request for action. That's great.
But it's not to say if someone contacts us and says, this is what I want, then we can't point them in the right direction. And that's a great idea.
All right.
Okay, so, yes, Linda, sorry.
Jeff, as a newbie, I really appreciated having a website and exploring. I learned a lot from it. I can just imagine the work that went into this. I really appreciate the transparency.
Thank you, Linda, appreciate that.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. All right, so Next thing on the agenda is emerging issues. We're a little behind, but I think we're going to be okay. We're going to be able to catch up here. The first thing is the reappointment process. We're currently in the middle of that process, and I think it was requested that we put that on there.
I can
Diallo?
talk about it real quick. The class of 2013, which includes John, Malloy, Sam, Sonji, and Emmanuel, have to be reappointed. We were gonna try to have a vote in September, but since council approved Sam, Sonji, and Emmanuel, we can have a vote here today. So I don't know if I should just move to reappoint the class of 2013, and then we can have that sent to council by at least the 15th. But it has to be done by September 15th.
So why is it that we don't have to have them go through the reappointment process?
Well,
Because they're they're finishing somebody else's term.
right.
And so,
Well, we wanted to just expedite the process. So I guess, yeah, maybe it does have to have a meeting first. But since, I was just saying, since they have been reappointed, I think we have to have a meeting, so.
okay.
Wait, you want to go in?
I guess what I would say is, I don't think that Sam, Emmanuel, and Sonji should have to fill out that reappointment application there, because the application has to be done as an HRC commissioner.
Yeah.
So I think that we should automatically be asking for them to be reappointed.
Okay.
I guess unless we could ask them if they didn't want to be, I suppose, but, so really it's the other two in that class that we're waiting for their applications.
John and Malloy?
Yeah, so I think that we bring a motion forward, that all five of them be reappointed, and it all goes to council on that timeline, is that it's gonna happen.
Right, and so we're all gonna be doing busy pieces of this puzzle. So, John sent in his application for reappointment, right? Or his,
Yeah.
and did you get anything else from anybody else?
No.
Yeah, it's with you.
No, but I had at least Sam, somebody, and Emmanuel's resume. It would be cool to have an updated one.
Right. So are we sure that John, Malloy, Emmanuel, Sam, and Sonji are all interested in being reappointed?
I hope so, at least for Emmanuel and Sam.
Yeah, we don't have food at any other meetings, we only have it. No.
I'm sorry, question. We appointed for Human Rights Commission.
For the
Yes.
class of 2013.
But I'm talking about like Malloy and myself. What do we have like in the bylaw says two, only two, so 2 terms,
2 3-year terms.
3-year term.
Mhm.
So
So
you'll
usually
be at
the third.
6 years.
Huh?
He hasn't
October
served 2
2014.
full 3-year terms.
Yeah.
Huh?
I've only served 1 3-year term.
Oh, you said only one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, what we can, the parts that we can do immediately are to get through the city council process.
Yeah.
So what I went to a training with the auditor's office specifically about this. I didn't want to depend on anyone else to tell me, oh, this is kind of how you do it. I got it straight from them. There was a memo that they showed me that goes to council as part of the packet that has paragraph bios on each reappointee. That, if we could get that together very soon, just kind of a short paragraph of each person who's going to be reappointed, saying why it's relevant, and you know, it'd have to be relevant to the HRC, why they should be reappointed. That will go on a memo. I can get that through the mayor's office, through Josh, and get that out to the rest of the city council. They can let us know if they want to meet with any of the reappointees or not. Then the regular process is still happening here, where you're going to vote on reappointing them, and then hopefully it'll all catch up at that point, and we'll have them reappointed by the time the term starts. There's no swearing in that's necessary, that's kind of nice. But, so what I would need really right away is a biography paragraph from John, Malloy, Emmanuel, Sam, and Sonji.
And if you have any questions for what the bio paragraph, if they
I'll
have any
send you-
questions for that.
I'll send an example to all of you, will that help?
Okay.
township.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to come to us.
I don't know.
And for John, Sam, and Sonji, and Emmanuel, what, that paragraph, because reappointment for them is just really like their starting commission, so, like, that paragraph would, just go, you'll send a paragraph to them, so.
It's important that the council and the public, when they see it on the council agenda, that they actually now have paragraphs, so the council can say they know these folks that they're, about these folks that they're voting on, and that the public, through transparency, can see, oh, okay, these are the folks that are, so.
So for the folks that are new, their paragraph is going to be very similar to the paragraph that the council just saw 2 weeks ago. So.
Well, I don't think there were paragraphs. I don't think we've ever done it.
Oh, okay. Well, the information is similar, so the information for reappointment is very similar to those three.
So instead of attaching resumes and all that, for this process specifically, I need to combine it all in one memo that has the bios for each person, signed, and we'll work with the mayor's office to find out who wants to sign that memo and who needs to come to the council.
And so one last quick thing, when is the HRC gonna vote on it?
Well, we can do that in September or October. But hopefully, I mean, I think the best practice would be to do it in September, just in case there's any snafu at all or anything like that. So we'll put it on the agenda for next month. Yep. Okay, so if anybody has any questions about what they need to do, make sure to ask Jeff about that, and make sure, Jeff, why don't you set a deadline for submissions of the paragraph?
Okay, I will. I'll send that out in the email.
Thank you. Okay, anything else on the reappointment process? Awesome. The other emerging issue just happened today, and it involves the mayor's new initiative, or the police and the mayor's initiative on the homeless population sleeping downtown, and what the best way to handle that is. Today was the first time, at least, that I became aware that the police were asking this community to move off of sidewalks that weren't really adjacent to City Hall. And I think that we're gonna get a lot of comment on that. And I thought that it would be a good idea to have a relatively brief discussion today about that, and to just kind of flush out people's feelings on what's going on there, and what the HRC's role might be in dealing with that issue. I know that we've been involved in SITY in the past, and so just as far as getting up to speed on what's going on and how we might move forward. Alan, do you want to start us off with what's going on? And maybe we have a representative from the mayor's office in the crowd, so it might be.
We have representatives from.
And from Sisters of the Road. Although this could go a lot longer than we have if we start getting deep into this. But maybe, Alan, do you want to kind of open it up, and then we can see where we.
So if you weren't aware, it was, I think about a week ago, that the first part of the activity started at City Hall, where the city decided to enforce the sidewalk management rules around high pedestrian use zones. So that the area around City Hall has had a growing number of protesters who have been using the sidewalk on a lengthy basis for various purposes. There had been a number of police complaints, apparently, close to 120 complaints. I don't know how that compares to complaints in other parts of the city, but it was one of the facts that came out for the reasons for that action. And so I think it is about a week or a week and a half ago, the police came in and cleared the sidewalks around City Hall. So that was the first action. Just this morning, it was announced that the police bureau would also begin enforcing other, I believe that it's being based on the camping ban. So that the police have apparently been tracking folks who have been, have had extended stays in the same place on sidewalks in the city, and moved today to remove those folks from those locations. So that's my understanding of what's happened. I didn't know, I didn't follow today what occurred, but in watching the news reports that came out. They went to several locations today and asked folks to move on. I don't know if anybody was arrested or cited under that action. So, and from my perspective, as I followed both of these actions, the thing that really troubled me around it was the language that's being used. Even though it was initiated by the city, I think some of the language that's coming out may be the result of what we see in the media, that filter that comes through. That's really beginning to equate homelessness, or folks who are experiencing homelessness, or exercising their right to leisure and rest in public places in the city, and we're equating that with issues around lawlessness, around public safety, around these problems that we're having in our city. And there isn't, to me, a one-to-one correlation. And so it's a really difficult situation, I think, that we put people in by taking an action like this, that just like this, I mean, here's an example here, the Willamette Week online headline said that police begin sidewalk sweep of homeless. So, you know, the media characterizes all these folks who are using the sidewalk in this way as homeless when we have no way to know what their housing status is and to know whether or not this community that we call homeless is actually causing the problems that we as a community want to eliminate. So I think, to me, I'm not in a position to say that I don't think we should be doing these things. I think we need to be careful about how we do it and what it says about the folks that are being characterized as causing the problems that we're trying to solve. I think that there are problems that we need to solve in the downtown core, and we've got to be careful about the way we talk about it.
LEHR, put out a statement, is that true?
During the city hall.
Yeah. Can you remind me what the gist of that was? It was language related, wasn't it?
Well, we just want to make sure that people aren't equating homelessness with crime. It's not a crime to be homeless. And the focus is on crime. We just want to make sure that it's not just this umbrella statement for, you know, that all the folks who are homeless are, you know, involving criminal activity. And I think the mayor's office also, you know, said that a very similar message, that it's not the same thing.
But they cited as part of the reason the number of police complaints they got.
And then
So
camping.
it's not about crime, but you've got all of these complaints. Not what
Yeah, I don't know if the statistic that was brought forth was citations. I think it was complaints. I think it was citations. Actually, Chad, I think.
There's a series of both. I mean, we've had, in the last 180 days, there was approximately 113 calls to service.
Calls for service.
Regarding homelessness in and around the City Hall area, in addition to a lot of complaints from citizens, including City Hall employees who are being harassed coming in and out of work. I'm one of them, from people who are out on the sidewalk. So certainly it's not the position of the mayor's office to say that one and all, you know, homeless are the same. I mean, this is a very complicated issue. There's different groups of people who are out on the sidewalks based on the season. You'll see some that come and they're here like right now during the summertime when it's a pretty nice place to be in Portland. And you don't see them in the month of December when it's 20 degrees and horizontal rain. Very different class compared to some people who we all know by face and name. If you're a clean and safe employee, for instance, who goes around, and the mayor's done a couple of walkabouts where he's been out at 6 o'clock in the morning, going along with our clean and safe crew and waking people up, and they're on a first name basis there. Very different situation than where you see in other places. We had an incident, I'll go back a little further in time than just a couple of weeks ago when we started the movement around City Hall. There was a 70-year-old gentleman who was hit over the head with a skateboard down by the outdoor store. Not okay. I mean, this is not about just a homeless issue, that's an assault. And people should feel safe when they come in and out of these places, and that's what we're focused on.
So,
Abdul's
for me, I was following the news and also when I was overseas, I was reading about it. And sometimes I feel the message with media and when we have public entities speaking, they confuse the protest with the homeless. So I want to know if somebody put in a tent, like when I was overseas, in the third world country where I was visiting, people camp in front of the parliament for days, and they are getting support, some entities coming to help with cleaning, but they are protesting there for an issue. So I don't want things to be confused between the homeless and the protester. Or even a homeless who's protesting about issues. But I don't want to be one person drinking a beer to be that everybody is drinking something ugly or smoking something ugly. This is one. The second thing, when there's a complaint, who's complaining? Is it businesses? Is it who is complaining about these issues? Because that's where sometimes we have to be really issue. Or the third thing is freedom of speech. I worked by one parliament in another place, and when somebody made a comment to me, I thought I'm a member of parliament speaking because look at my nice dress. I respected that comment because freedom of speech. When we have an officer getting a flipped off or comment to an officer of profanity, the officer, I know our officers, it's a hard job, but they respect doesn't take a pocket. So should we arrest that person who make it or say we remove them from there? So we have to be really careful where we draw the line here. When we're talking about homelessness, we're talking about protest, we're talking about freedom of speech, things like that. And then we are not going to tell people like we ran into before, you cannot sit, if somebody's sitting in a street, we don't know if it is a health issue, disability, a lot of other factors that was come and tell them, go. The other thing I really want to hold accountable our officials, the use of language when you're talking to somebody. Are you trying to irritate? Are you trying to make somebody to react and arrest? So things that is part of the human rights that I really represent. That's what we have to be this commission paying attention while we're going forward.
Somebody else?
I think
Dale, okay.
First, I want to thank you for saying that. Touching on a lot of points I wanted to say. I think that a lot of the crimes that are happening, it sounds like blaming the victim, and instead of finding the root cause and focusing on that. And I think that to point out one specific time as well, it can't stereotype or say that all homeless people are going to be criminals just based off of one person who may have done a crime that was, I think you pointed out, like hitting somebody over the head with a skateboard. I don't think that all homeless people would do that. Like, I think that's a very small percentage of that population that did that. And so, but you covered most of what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Malloy, then Amy. Amy, then Malloy.
I'm wondering about action for this. It might be a little premature, but just in that vein, wondered if the Fair Housing Task Force, did you guys look into deciding whether or not you're going to also address homelessness at one point?
It's on our agenda, it's amongst the issues that we're looking into, it's just on.
Adopted
Well, we don't have a
officially?
specific, like,
Mandate?
plan that we're working towards.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, we basically brought up at a previous meeting. We feel it fits within our.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Definitely fits. So, I just want to echo what Abdul said. I mean, this discussion is all focused around the language the city's using in removing people. But, I mean, Alan began by talking about this was a protest. And, you know, I don't follow the organization or police that carefully. And so I'm left with, they were protesting something. What was it, and why can't we talk about that? Because they were there for a reason.
I know some of them are protesting for the right to be classified as a protected class, which is a federal
Sam? Couple things. Yeah, I have a different insight because some of these people I deal with on a daily basis in my role as park ranger. So I know that many of these people, some of them are, it's not as easy as to pinpoint what the whole group is doing. Some of them are occupiers, some of them are homeless, some of them are protesting. Some of them are committing crimes. I wouldn't say a majority of them, but it does happen occasionally. I think for me, in this role, I'm wondering what is the justification for the mayor and the mayor's office for removing these individuals from in front of the mayor's office. If their sole reason for being there, or from the city street, if their sole reason for being there is to protest, or because they're homeless and they have nowhere else to go, I guess I'm confused. I thought there was a law in place where they could be there. And so, can you tell me or the group, what is the, I guess, the language or the letter of the law the mayor's using to justify moving them?
Happy to take a stab at this. And I'll try to address some points that was made. And I'm sorry I can't see people's names, but
Come on up here.
Mr.
Yeah, come on.
Mr. Majidi.
Yeah, see right here. Sure. Yeah.
Be on camera.
I don't know if I belong with the head, but.
By the way,
Just-
Chad didn't know he was going to be talking about
Right.
this tonight. so.
And, you know, I think just for time's sake, I think that this would be appropriate to move some of our time from public comment. We could use some of our public comment time for what we're doing currently, and then also ask if Michael has anything that he'd like to say to give him some time, again, for public comment. And we'll just consider this part of our public comment period. We'll still have a little bit more at the end, but I'm just trying to be mindful of time. But Chad, if you could give us some insight on that, that'd be great, and then we'll have, if anybody in the audience wants to respond at all, we'll do that too.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate having me here today, and I'll just introduce myself real quickly. My name is Chad Stover. I'm policy advisor on Mayor Dale's staff. Came in under the previous administration in international affairs. My background's in foreign languages. Now I'm in public safety issues, as well as helping Josh. Josh is your designated official liaison, but I work closely with Josh out of the Mayor's Office on Equity and Human Rights issues as well. So happy to be here today, happy to meet all of you. See if I can try to answer maybe a short version of what you were asking about, and maybe comment on a few of the bullets that Abdul made, and maybe try to respond to. Sorry.
Dale.
Dale, thank you. As well, and I'll try to give you the condensed version. I think that as we've been treading these waters around sidewalk management in front of City Hall, as well as other places downtown, we've been walking a pretty fine line, and I've been urging my colleagues in our discussions that we should make sure that the conversation is within the confines, the parameters of the Constitution, as well as the Oregon state statutes, as well as the city ordinances. It's easy for these conversations sometimes to drift off into, I think this, I think that, and then we forget about what our parameters are in terms of what we're actually able to do in terms of where we're able to function. This issue here is, we do have a camping ordinance in the city, and we have a sidewalk ordinance in the city. I think right now we're mainly focused on the livability portion. So, you know, with exception to the First Amendment rights, we're very conscientious about that. People have the right to protest, and people can come to City Hall and protest. It's a symbol. They've been doing it forever. People like to come to the place of government to protest. We welcome that. We want that to happen. They should do that. I don't believe that everybody out there is doing that. I think some people are protesting, but I think there's people who are not. We can't simply hurt all of them as though they are, or that they're all not. So it's a tricky situation. So the way that we're seeing right now is mainly around livability. So there's a livability issue here with some of these areas that we're working on. People don't feel safe. We've had people assaulted recently and in the past. Not just the gentleman who was hit over the head with a skateboard. We've had a number of issues happen recently. 113 calls for service, to be precise. Not all those were necessarily assaults, but they were on some level a complaint or an interruption some way. So the assault, I'd say, is an extreme case. We've had people having sex in front of City Hall on the sidewalk. And city staff witnesses as they come to and from work. Not okay. I have colleagues that work as policy advisors in our office, as well as the other commissioners' offices, who have been called derogatory names, who have been threatened, they've been threatened. And that's just around City Hall alone. And pretty brazen stuff for where they're at. And we know that they're not just there, they're in other places. So these kinds of things are not okay to be doing. If people feel threatened when they come into work every day, that's not right. And so we are looking at it that way. We want to protect First Amendment rights. People have the right to protest. They have the right to freedom of speech. It's absolutely okay. You're right. Not everybody is a criminal, nor do we look at everybody as a criminal. We understand that there are a lot of different people on the sidewalks right now. We have some that we know by name. I'm on a first name basis with some of the people that we are at that are out on the sidewalks in front of City Hall. They know me by my name. I say hi to them every morning when I come into work, and I say goodbye when I leave. And they're there all the time. I don't feel threatened by them, and I'm sure they're not feeling threatened by me. There's other people who are not, though, who I don't know. They show up, they're here in the months of July and August, and then they're gone by September, and we don't see them again. So as you get into this, and you can talk to our officers, Central Precinct, Commander Bob Days, our commander there, he's got a number of really good officers who are very, very seasoned in this, and they've been working on these kinds of issues for a long, long time. They know them very well, and they know how to classify different groups, whether it be, in layman's terms, travelers is one. These are folks that come and they're from out of state. They come to Portland. It's a good place to be for summertime months because it's warm, and then they move on. Very different class than the ones we see out there 12 months out of the year. And in fact, we hear from those folks complaining about the travelers folks. And it doesn't designate just two classes here either. There are other classes that are there as well. So that's a brief overview of where we're going. I'll also say this in terms of the 30,000-foot view, if you will, is that I don't think that the solution to solving our sidewalk management is going to come in the form of just city government simply passing a city ordinance or amending one that already exists, and boom, problem solved. I don't think it's going to work that way. I think it's going to be a collaborative partnership between city government. We can do those things, and maybe passing a new ordinance is a good thing. Maybe amending one that already exists is also a good thing. But I think it's also going to be working together among property owners and business owners, downtown businesses, to work collaboratively to do some things that they can do, that they have the authority and the right to do in terms of their managing the property in front of their businesses. So we're looking along those lines.
Okay, thank you very much. I would appreciate the insight.
Can I do a time check and just make sure that Michael, if he wants it, has the same amount of time?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. Generally, for public comment, we don't ask questions of the people who are commenting, but I imagine, Chad, are you going to be available? Are you going to be here for the rest of the evening?
I'm not sure how long we're going.
6:30.
6:30? Oh, I might not be able to stay that long, but I can stay for a few more minutes. I'd like to.
Well, I'm just, people may have questions for Chad or for the mayor's office. I'm not sure what that would entail, but I just want to make sure we kind of have to keep this thing going. So I don't want to open it up for questions for Chad right now. But if people do have questions, can you tell us how to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. I'll leave you some cards here, so feel free, and I hope that I can come back again.
What is going to be a hearing about this?
I'm sorry.
Is going to be a hearing on City Council about this?
Oh, I imagine there will be. We've had a lot of people show up in pretty spirited conversations for the last couple of weeks, including this morning. So I sure hope so. There should be open democratic dialogue about this.
Thank you very much, and thanks for giving us information on how to get a hold of you or from the office.
I'll just pass them down that way.
Thank you.
And then Jeff knows how to get a hold of them for sure. So.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Pat.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak to the issue that we're discussing now? Mr. Moore, would you like to speak at all?
Sure, I could say a couple things. I mean,
Do you want to come up?
What up?
And we're not trying to put you on the spot. We just want to make sure that all views are heard equally here. And we probably all got our views, but not all views equally, but we're going to give you the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know this was on the agenda. But, I mean, I just wanted to say a couple things. One, I believe it was Selby who said, being homeless is not a crime, but in effect, the way Portland's ordinances work, being homeless is a crime. I mean, you cannot survive without sleep, and according to city ordinances, you can't sleep on the sidewalk during the day, and you can't sleep in the parks or anywhere out there. So you can't camp and camping, for those who don't know, is defined as lying down on the ground and putting something over you. It's not even, we're not even talking tents. I mean, you just cover yourself up with anything and you're camping. I dare say that most middle class, particularly white Portlanders, don't know that and don't get cited for that. And, people who don't appear to be unhoused. And I guess another thing I wanted to say is that I feel like, I think I completely agree with Chad Stover, that the solution is not going to come from an ordinance or revising an ordinance. But I think that there's got to be some kind of development of understanding, and not just from property owners and business owners and people who are unhoused, but some way to create some kind of dialogue. When this past session, one of the bills that we were happy to see not passed was a bill sponsored by the Portland Business Alliance that would have effectively undermined the ruling by the Multnomah County judge that kind of rolled back I think the third version of the civil law that the city council had passed before they settled on what is currently in place. And if you read the testimony that was submitted in favor of that ordinance, it was kind of all over the map. Some of it barely addressed the issues. Some of it was extremely negative and insulting and prejudicial about anybody who might be homeless. And I would love to see the city take more leadership on working to change that, and so that incidents like somebody getting hit don't happen. It's nobody deserves to be hit. Homeless people who are experiencing homelessness get hit all the time. I mean, they're constantly being hit. They're living in constant violence, in constant state of unsafe conditions. And yet, 2 years ago, when Right to New 2 got started, Occupy Portland was still happening. There was a meeting, and this was on videotape, between a bunch of the people from Occupy and a couple of representatives of the police force, and they were talking about, one of the issues they had there was that they had this big influx of people who were unhoused that was kind of overwhelming the camp. And there was a lot of discussion about, well, are people protesting? Do they just need someplace to sleep? Do they need something to eat? What's going on? And some of the people from Occupy were saying we're having a hard time handling the numbers. And Chief Reese said, well, in our experience, anytime more than 10 homeless people get together, it's a problem. And it's really hard to imagine the chief of police of this city or any other city in this day and age saying that about any other group of people. I mean, I cannot imagine him saying that about African Americans or Muslims or anyone. But it's okay, or at least apparently he felt it was okay to say that about people experiencing homelessness. And that to me is what has got to change. And the attitudes of the business owners or the property owners and the people on the street and the feelings of unsafety, which are just feelings, they aren't necessarily reality, are not going to change until the city takes some leadership on that. And that's what I hope this body can help. The other thing about solutions is that I hope Right to Dream 2 was started as, it actually was kind of started as a protest, and it evolved into something that I actually think is a potential solution. It's not ideal. Ideally we would have housing, but we don't, and we're not going to get there anytime soon. We are now, 8 years into the 10-year plan to end homelessness, and the numbers have only gone up. So, you know, there's got to be some difference, something, we've got to be able, I think, be willing to try different things and try and broaden our horizons. And the city has had, you know, watching the way both the city and different parts, different agencies like the Coordinating Committee on Homelessness, the different nonprofits, watching the way their attitude has evolved to Right to Dream 2 has been really encouraging. But we're still not at a place where anyone is willing to sort of come out and say, well, we need something like this, or we need more of these, or we need small versions of these so that people can get off the street, can have a place where they can go sleep. So that couples can stay together, because our R2D2 is the only shelter in the city that's not a family shelter, that will allow couples to be together. And also will allow people to bring their pets, as long as the pets are being well behaved. I'm on the board of Right to Dream 2 and have been involved with it from the beginning, and what's been really, really remarkable about it is watching people, when you treat them as people who have a voice and who actually have a say in what happens, watching them step up to making sure that everything is okay. When you treat people like, when people feel like nothing they do makes a difference, that's when you get people hitting people. I mean, that's my feeling. That's when you get, you know, the kind of violence that we see happening, perpetrated, you know, by I think by all sides. So that's all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. You know, this is a topic that we need to be mindful of and stay, you know, pay close attention to. I don't think at this point there is an ask on the table, but I think it certainly would be, you know, conscientious of the Human Rights Commission to say something about being mindful of the issues that I think especially that Alan was bringing up, equating homelessness with lawlessness, not confusing, and I think what Abdul was saying, not confusing the protester with the criminal, or the unhoused person with the criminal, or the speaker with the criminal. And those are all things that, you know, I think it would be appropriate to speak up about, you know, right away. And I think Amy, go ahead.
Sorry, I was interested in what they all had to say.
Do you think it would also be appropriate to refocus on the actual protesting concern, which is probably housing, Bill of Rights, and actual homelessness? There are places to sleep for the community. That would be something that maybe the Housing Rights Task Force can talk about more. Refocusing. So, go ahead.
You know, one thing I do want to say too is I think the media doesn't help with this, and I think they exacerbate the problem sometimes. And I think we should hold the city accountable for their actions and their words, but I also think we should hold the media accountable for them focusing on certain words, and I think exacerbating the problem by putting out, you know, by taking words out of context and making it seem like there is even more of a conflict than there already is, and so I think we should be mindful of those issues too.
And, you know, to his point, I think that just as an advisor to the commission, I would like to see the Human Rights Commission take a leadership role in perhaps putting together a community discussion about this, because this is something that's a huge issue, and I think this is a body that can really start those conversations.
Well, one thing that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of that happening, I can easily see that happening with our public forums. We've already talked to Michael and sisters about working with us on what's about to happen in the fall.
Thanks for picking up that cue.
Yeah, that would be fun. And so I'm wondering if there's an individual or if the Housing Rights Task Force is interested in drafting something.
A public statement from
Yeah.
the commission. I think, you know, when we talk about holding both the city and the media accountable for its words, I think, you know, that kind of screams out to me, a public statement that says exactly that. That, you know, there's a lot of chatter in the media right now about homelessness, lawlessness, then we ought to point out that those two things aren't the same. A statement can, public statement can itself.
Is there a timeline folks would like to see? Because we may not be able to meet. I mean, we haven't set a date to meet next, so I don't know, if it's gonna be next week or it might be later this month. So I just don't want an expectation being that something could be out in shorter days. We don't have time to sit down and discuss it. But other than that, other than the timing, I agree. I think it is appropriate for the Housing Rights Task Force to take on that.
I think that it would be good, I think we should get a statement out right away. And so I think that if we weren't here today, I would probably do it as chair. That's part of my duties as chair. If anybody would prefer that I don't do that and that they do it, they go ahead and tell me now. I'm happy to go ahead and do it. Or I know Alan had something, but you were thinking about doing it on an individual basis. I don't know if you.
I can send it to you. I can draft my thoughts and send them to you, and then you can bring them together if you want them to be from the commission.
So if everybody's, I don't think we need a vote on this because chair, this is something that I'm supposed to do. But if everybody's okay with me going ahead with a statement on this, on the issues that we've just discussed, then I'll go ahead and do that. Does anybody have an issue with that?
Can we say that if anyone has any input for that they can email you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And not the whole group?
I have a question. So when that statement is done, then how is that gonna be sent through the email
Press release.
list? Okay. But
Well,
also the email, like
It'll
the,
go through the entire HRC community interest mailing list, all the media, anywhere, I mean, everywhere and everywhere.
so we will see that email coming into us then?
We'll know that the statement is out.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would be good, that, you know, all the contact information we're
Yeah,
putting.
any release that's gone out, you guys have always been copying them,
Right.
so.
And we can consider the format too. Maybe it's not just a question. Maybe we try to submit it as a public, as a guest opinion piece or Oregonian or a letter to the mayor. So format might be.
Trust me, the release will go out, we'll start getting calls. Yeah.
Actually, I will kind of, it might be politically false, that's a point of view. I think a topic like this, it needs to go not only mailing this, but it has to go, we have to make a statement in the newspaper.
Oh, absolutely.
clarify this, and it has to make its way to the city council as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So early stage DNO, because we owe it also to city council to see what the point of view and other things that we're hearing. That's why we're here.
I think it starts with a press release because that's the kind of the easiest way to go, right? Not the easiest, but the most immediate way to go. With this issue, when you send out a press release, just like any press release I've sent out in the last couple of weeks, we will start getting calls. But the plan should be, this is an advisory to the city council, so that should be part of the plan as well. It shouldn't just be one thing, it should be everything, and absolutely.
I just had a comment. Maybe Michael, you might know about it, or maybe somebody at the table. I've heard something about alley to allies, turning alleyways into possible transitional homes or houses for homeless people. And I worked with Patrick, you know Patrick, about that. Is there any rumor of truth to that, or?
Patrick is the one I heard about it from, so we both heard that from the same source. And I don't know where, he was talking to some people on the east side. This was happening in the inner southeast. There were some conversations, but I don't know how much progress that anyone made on that, or on actually setting up like a program. It may have just been a couple of cases where people were like, we could just do this right here. Not that that's a bad thing, but whether it was anything, I don't know, and I haven't heard more about it.
But that's something we can certainly look into. And, I'm not sure exactly, I think it maybe was just Jeff's point about, and I think Amy followed up on it, about bringing people together to discuss this issue. And that's one of the things that Michael said he would want the Human Rights Commission to do, to play a role. And that's certainly something that at the roundtable we heard about, bringing people together to discuss these issues. And that's a function that we should be, that's consistent with that clearinghouse message that we got. And I think that, if it would be great to do it as part of the forums, and if that venue wouldn't be the best way to do it, or if we couldn't do it in time, and this is an issue that really becomes quickly a really hot issue, then it might be something where we would want to organize something even sooner. but to be that mediator and to try to bring those people together, or those groups together to the table, I think would be a function that would be very much appreciated by a lot of people in the community.
And this is the group that can do it.
Yeah, so let's take advantage of it, of an opportunity to help, and if anybody does have any suggestions for the press release, email me and Al.
Immediate, because I think we should get something out.
We'll get something out before Friday, hopefully. That would be great.
Let me make another suggestion.
Sure.
Maybe we'll, in the community police operation, make a topic for the police to come and tell us what exactly, because I would like to hear also from the police. And another thing, and they did this in the past, is if we have a chance, I'm not telling you to, if we have a chance as commissioners, from time to time, we as a topic like this, we'll go visit the sites and maybe ask people there, or look at people with our badges, so they know we are hearing, we're seeing, and also bring input to the commission. So that way we all get the right information. So I will encourage us if we have that opportunity to do that.
Okay, so our agenda is completely messed up right now. I could use so many other words, but I'm not going to on camera. And so I'm going to try to get us through the motions that we have to get through, and then just see where we can go. But so I want to try to move kind of quickly here. The action items are next on the agenda. The VOS endorsement is just an update. We don't need to vote on that. At our last meeting, we authorized the policy committee to advocate in the way that it believed was appropriate for the VOS. I am aware from Ashley's email that I just got before this meeting that she has informed VOS that we are going to be advocating on their behalf for the city to donate that land to the Worker Center, and that Ashley's sending out a letter. She was hoping to get it done by today, but wasn't able to because of a schedule issue. But a letter to the mayor, and she was informed by VOS that the timing is okay with that, and so that letter is going to be, my hope is that it will be out by the end of this week. And so that was the VOS issue. If you have any questions about that, get in touch with Ashley or me or John, and we can talk about that a little bit more, but we're excited to try to help those people out. And we ran that through the human rights impact analysis and identified, and concluded that it was well within the parameters of what we should be doing. So we're excited to be helping VOS out, and I think it's an amazing project. The second issue is Bring Our War Dollars Home, an endorsement request that was brought to us by Kurt Bell, and Diallo is going to give us an update and make a quick motion on that. Diallo did send out an email to everybody with a heads up on the motion that he's going to be making. So the thing to do, he already has, or the CDC has already come up with their recommendation. So what Diallo is going to do is make the motion, the recommendation through the motion.
So we are completing that second setting as well.
What hasn't been finished?
The document for Bring Our War Dollars Home.
Right, but what? Okay. Okay, I'll do the conflict-free one first, and then we'll see if you guys want to do the same thing. So the conflict-free minerals resolution was brought to us back in March. I sent an email out to everybody yesterday about that. And I ran that through the human rights impact analysis. The executive committee asked me to look at that issue and make a recommendation to them. The executive committee adopted that recommendation, and that is to endorse the resolution by the conflict-free initiative to recommend to the city council that they consider the presence of conflict minerals in all of the electronics that the city buys. And so my motion, as I said in the email, is to allow the executive committee at its discretion, because the conflict-free resolution is incomplete at this point, just for a few technical reasons. The motion is to allow the executive committee to act in its discretion to advocate for the conflict-free initiative in moving this resolution to City Council.
On behalf of HRC.
On behalf of HRC. And so that's my motion. Do I have a second? Second from Abdul. And now there's time for discussion. So does anybody have any discussion? Is there anything anybody wants to ask or say about the motion or about the endorsement? Has everybody had a chance to look at that?
Yeah,
Everybody
thank you,
got
that
the
was
email?
really nice.
Okay.
I remember the presentation, but it was really
Great.
The only thing I would say, I would actually, as a friendly amendment, I would actually strike the words "at its discretions." I think that we should, as a commission, be directing the HR exec committee to be something, to do something as opposed to directing the exec committee to do whatever it wants to do. So the words "at its discretion" tells me that we're giving that body the ability to do whatever it wants to do. I think what as a commission we want to direct the exec committee to do is to take the next step on our behalf in advocating for that, to not do whatever.
And I guess for clarity, I'd say that when I say at its discretion, I mean whatever the executive committee feels is appropriate to advocate for the endorsement. So, but as a friendly amendment, I think that's accepted. Did you get that, Sarah?
Yep. So to advocate in favor
In
of
favor
the endorsement.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Okay, so all in favor of the motion presented by me and seconded by Abdul, an aye and a show of hands? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And I'll say for the record that John Versu asked me to vote as his proxy in favor of that motion.
Wow, fancy.
That's right, you can do that.
A quick process clarification, that's pretty much the same process we did for Ashley and Bose.
Exactly.
We gave her the authority, the authority to do just the same thing.
To advocate on behalf of folks.
Gotcha.
I just need this clarification. What did you say, like, right before the amendment?
Actually, wait, let me
Can
clarify.
we just say it again, maybe?
Before the amendment?
Like, I don't know. Okay, can you just say the amendment again, the friendly amendment?
That was Alan.
So just strike the words at their discretion.
Okay, I have that.
Okay.
And then who first, who second?
I moved Abdul.
Okay.
I clarified,
And
yeah.
I want to make sure that that's clear, actually. No, the Vos amendment authorization was for the policy committee to decide whether to support Vos's ask of the city. We hadn't decided whether it was appropriate to support Vos in that. In this case, we are directing the executive committee to act in favor of the conflict-free initiative. So Ashley and the policy committee decided in the interim that it was appropriate to endorse Vos. In this case, the commission has already decided it's appropriate to endorse. They're just authorizing the executive committee to execute that endorsement. Okay? All right, so.
So yeah, with conflict-free minerals, their exact.
You're
I mean,
going to
not
bring our war dollars.
Yeah, war dollars. Their exact resolution is to call on Congress and the President to reduce U.S. military spending and redirect funds to critical domestic needs, including services for veterans. A little bit more information, the resolution was brought by Kurt McKimbell, husband of Linda McKimbell, and it fits well into human rights abroad and here at home by reducing military spending on war, which violates human rights daily, and by spending more money on domestic needs here in Portland, including the services for veterans. So it's really similar to Kyle's. I want to move or make a motion for the HRC to authorize the executive committee to endorse the final draft of the resolution once we receive it, as well as provide advocacy on behalf of the resolution.
Okay, so that's a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Amy, and is there any discussion about the Bring Our War Dollars Home resolution? Everybody got the email from Dale? Okay. No discussion? All right, all in favor of Diallo's motion to allow the executive committee to advocate for the Bring Our War Dollars Home resolution. Show of hands and an eye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Linda McKinnon abstains. And the motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, speeding along, I'm sorry. Next on the agenda is the bylaws update. Alan, do you want to switch?
No,
I'm sorry, we switched it. The HRC communications and action process recommendations. This is the handout that looks like this with draft on it. This is a draft of the work that Amy, Ashley, John, Versu, and I, along with Jeff Selby and Christine Rontal, have been doing, trying to put together a protocol for both communications and requests for action, like the ones that we just went through. We're not asking for a vote on this. This is an update, and my proposal for today is really just to get this out to everybody and to tell everybody that we hope to get a vote on the protocols at the next meeting when we do a vote on the bylaws as well. You'll notice that the communications protocols are followed by the action request protocols, and then at the end there's the communication and action request guidance. The guidance are not going to be protocols. They are sort of like administrative rules to revise statutes, which are the executive committee's interpretation of the bylaws as they would apply to these questions that were presented. And so those are not going to be actual protocols, they're more like guidance. So we are going to be meeting at least once more as a group to finalize these protocols, and we would encourage anyone who wants to get involved with that to contact myself or Jeff. Jeff, hopefully we'll work it out so you can be a part of all this too, because Jeff is an integral part of these things as well. And let us know if you want to be a part of it. For the new commissioners, this is kind of part of what we've been doing for process in the last couple of months, just trying to iron out the bylaws, the protocols, to make sure that they're consistent with the new realities of the Office of Equity and Human Rights and our strategic plan. And so we've been pretty process heavy lately, and this is one of those pretty heavy process pieces. Amy?
Yeah, and I think just the overlaying themes that drive this document, as well as some pieces in the bylaws, they really should be read together, is who gets to decide what, who gets to move on what and when, and issues of timing. Some things can wait, some things require committee work, some things require rapid action, which I think we found has been particularly difficult for us to move on. So that's just a little bit of background around what the themes that this supports.
One suggestion. So following up on what Sam talked about earlier with the t-shirts and our discussion about buttons and all that, if one of the, somewhere in this, because a lot of this, it's referencing marketing, so it's about promoting us, mission, those sort of promotional materials, I think would be appropriate to find out in here, so that there's at least a placeholder when we sit down and do a budget to say, oh yeah, we wanted to look into purchasing more merchandise and make sure that there's money set aside to do that.
Would you maybe look at the protocols and make a suggestion about how you would fit that into these and send it to us?
Or it could just be print plus something else in that second, just expand the print section.
Or maybe in person.
In-person marketing, yeah.
T-shirts?
I don't think Sam said t-shirts, by the way.
I said polo shirts.
That's right, I'm thinking maybe t-shirts.
I like baseball shirts.
We need to talk to Sam offline about where
Letterman's jackets.
Blue jacket. Yellow.
All right.
There should be camisoles for women.
Camisoles and Letterman jackets.
And dresses.
Top hats. Okay. Is that it?
Staying out Yes.
Okay, so everybody take a look at this, and please, if you do have the opportunity or the desire to comment on it or make suggestions, we all have our own experiences, and any insight would be welcome. But we are going to be meeting, it's got to be in the next few weeks if you want to participate. Just let me or Jeff know in the next week if you want to be a part of that, because it's going to be hopefully something we'll get to really quickly.
Is that meeting already set?
Excuse me?
Is that meeting already set? The date?
We don't have it yet.
Okay.
So, okay. Alan, bylaws.
So as Kyle, actually, as Amy said, if you read the bylaws in conjunction with these protocols, they fit together in a way that, you know, our bylaws are the sort of highest order of our guidance. I'm going to back up. It's the second highest order. The highest order of our guidance is the city ordinance that forms this commission. And so the bylaws actually reflect a good bit of that ordinance. That ordinance changed, was it March, or it changed in the last year and a half, and our bylaws didn't. So some of what you see here are administrative changes to reflect that, where we changed the name of the office. The structure of the staff changed fairly significantly in that transition, and that is reflected in the bylaws. It was a significant improvement for us to get you. That's not reflected. So that's partly what you see here. There are some substantive changes, and I didn't point them out to you, but they're the longer paragraphs. For instance, if you look at Article 5, on page 3, Article 5, Section 2, you know, there's a long sentence there about how we could make non-HRC members of committees. They come on to committees as non-voting members. Linda McKimbell is a good example of that. But that, so that we would need to specify as a commission if we wanted to bring a non-HRC member onto a committee as a voting member. So that's one of the substantive changes. On page 4 is the Article 6 and Section 3, that process we worked out around nominations is now spelled out in the bylaws. In Section 3 there about the nominating meeting and how long nominations are open. I think the other substantive change is on page 5 in Article 7, Section 3, where it talks about, kind of spells out there who can speak on behalf of the commission and who can't. It's really just puts on paper what we've practiced. So the idea with this set of bylaw changes isn't to take a broad stroke at changing the way we do business, but to reflect the way we are doing business, to make those administrative changes. And then if there was something that we did want to change about the way we do business, we might propose it in a phase 2. So for instance, if we wanted to institute term limits on the chair, or if we wanted to have terms for the actual committee chairs, which right now do not have terms of service. They are just, you're a committee chair for as long as you wish to be. Those are the kinds of changes you might want to bring in phase 2, but phase 1 really represents those administrative changes and a couple of substantive changes. So that's what you see in front of you. We've given to you today, the committee met, we brought them forward for you to look at. We will vote on them in September. So the bylaws actually allow us to change bylaws with 2 days' notice before the meeting, but we're going to have an entire month before we vote on it. So if you have any feedback, please forward to me. And I think you have the electronic version of this. So
Yes.
if you have input that you want to submit, type it, you may. Type it. I'm not sure what I go with that exactly.
Alan?
Yes.
Could you explain the one on page 3?
Page 3, Section 2.
Yeah.
So it is intended to say, and I think that, again, we recently brought some non-HRC members onto committees. So it is to spell out that only the HRC members of those committees are voting members. So for instance, HTTF, unless the HRC members specify that all those other folks that are on that committee are voting members, then only the HRC members should be counted if there's a need for it. So remember, generally, all of HRC and its committees and subcommittees strive to to work towards consensus. So when you need for a vote, those are the only votes that will count.
Okay.
So we actually need to look at CPRC protocols to see how we vote on CPRC. I actually think that all 15 of those members know.
Well, and that's
I don't know if
because,
spelled out.
well, they do, but we also approved CPRC protocols.
That say they are voting
That
members.
said they're voting members, which is exactly why this language is in. So we're sort of working backwards in time a little bit with this. So, yeah, the idea is HRC members are the ones that are supposed to be making HRC decisions. Unless the entire HRC says it's okay for non-HRC members to be making decisions in certain committees. And then we're authorizing that to happen, which we already have
For CPRC.
with CPRC.
And I don't think we have any other instances.
And we don't have any other committees where that happens.
So for any committees or task forces, or does this apply to task forces?
Yes, actually should apply to task forces, so we should modify that language actually.
Should we write that?
I'll tell it.
Tell me, Brett. All right.
Okay, so for those committees that have not done this, I mean, we just need to come forward with a motion saying we want non-HRC members to be voting members of this committee.
Yes. And we may say no.
All right. Yeah.
So, I think also pretty substantive is for, and I'm just curious, that last piece about unexcused absence definition, 'cause that does change things pretty much. Could you tell us how that came about? Is that just because that's how we're doing things, or is it something else?
I think it's because we had the words unexcused absence in there and it was actually not defined what that meant. It was always assumed that it basically meant you missed something without telling somebody. So this actually defines what, so the only change is the underlying part.
So,
Is the definition.
so if the Human Rights Commissioner is absent for 8 meetings out of the year, but that person has told the chair that he or she is not going to be in the meeting, that's excused.
It's excused, yeah, and that's actually what the bylaws say, that's exactly right.
It's excused, but there are also other ways to, I mean, if a commissioner is just willy-nilly saying, I'm not gonna come to the next 8 meetings, that's gonna be more of a problem than, like, in Myra's case, for example, she had a scheduling conflict with school, and she told us, I'm not gonna be at the meetings between, January and June, but I'm gonna participate in the executive committee, and so we can make an exception for that. But if somebody just says, well, I'm not coming to these meetings, then there are other ways to remove that person from the commission.
And is that in the bylaws?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because the removal, the mayor may remove a member from the commission at any time with the recommendation of the commission, subject to approval by the council. So
you call the mayor?
the commission would recommend to the mayor. We would vote and say, Mayor, we want this commissioner out because they don't come to our meetings.
And then the other thing to remember, I mean, it's a longer term process, but the nominating committee doesn't necessarily go over attendance records, but if it is known that somebody has not been part of it and they're seeking reappointment, that's going to be a factor we're going to consider.
And then the other thing to think about is, this was in the original bylaws, the attendance says that if a member accumulates 3 unexcused absences during a 1-year period, that person shall be removed. There's no discretion available in that case. That's not something that we have enforced. But my feeling, and you don't have to agree with me, is that when we approve these bylaws, if we leave that in there, and let us know if you don't want to leave that in there, or if you all think the language should be modified, but if we leave that in there and then we approve, I think we have to do it from now on. That's what I think.
Excuse means,
And we just haven't.
which excuse here means not calling.
Yeah, exactly.
But just before, I think when I was a chair or something like that, we did one person.
And it's happened in the past, it just hasn't happened for a long time. And so.
And a quick aside is there's also language in here about making these meetings available through telecommunications.
Well, and they always have that. So if
And
somebody
an
wants to
alternative.
show up by phone, they can.
And Myra's done that too.
And Myra's done that too.
Right.
Myra's the
Let's say-
shining example. She's the beacon.
I've never
For
been
how
at the
to
meetings.
do it right.
What is recommended for approval, or for removal?
In which,
By the, is it recommended for removal by the mayor? Like, do you make a recommendation to the mayor?
the mayor may remove a member from the commission at any time with the recommendation of the commission and subject to approval by the council. So the commission has to recommend to the mayor.
Because of our ordinance, right?
Yeah. 'cause
Well,
we're-
yeah, the mayor appoints us. So the commission has to say to the mayor, you should remove this person.
So that recommendation for removal goes to the mayor?
Yeah.
In what case?
Just like our recommendation for appointment.
The way I read that, that got confusing for me was that the mayor could have possibly taken out a commissioner without the commission being a part of it.
And that's not.
right, right?
Right, that's not what we are
With the
trying to say.
recommendation.
Right. We have to recommend, yeah.
The bylaws don't
Mayor
allow
can't do
the
it.
mayor to do
If I remember when we started the commission, one of the things that was agreed on in the city auditor is it has to be the 5 city council agreeing. If one disagrees.
Oh, unanimously?
Yeah.
Oh.
If one disagrees, then no.
I don't think that city law would allow that, actually.
So, yeah, this is when we
Right.
started. Do you remember?
I
what-
remember.
Yeah, it has.
Well, let's check, I mean, if we want to put that in there, we'd have to check with the city attorney.
Well, no, I mean, that doesn't, our bylaws can't bind the council. We can, we can't say,
That's true.
but I think it either was in the ordinance, or we wanted it to be in the ordinance, or.
I think it was because I asked at that time, if you remember, and it was, I'm part of somebody who said it has to be 5.
Well, we can look at the ordinance, and
We need to
if
check
you
this.
email me about it, and we'll, I mean, if it's something that we want to put in there, then it's, again, we've got this month period for recommendations. So any recommendation that is made, we're gonna have to make sure that it's compliant with city law, and so, let's just
They should go through.
go through that process. Yeah, well, we'll have to send.
And, yeah, they tried, I still,
Well, we'll do that after we,
yeah.
yeah. We have to propose it.
Yeah, I asked her the reason behind, I will try to go to my notes back then. The reason behind it is no abuse of the power of city council of us. So it has to be, that's what, I will try to go to my notes if we can find it.
Basically, we have to upset all the commissioners.
Or if one person does.
Or you're not doing your job.
Wait, exactly what I was gonna say, we're not doing our job honestly. Did you have something before?
No.
Let me know if I'm being greedy with time, but I'm also curious about the last sentence of section 4(8). Representation was struck.
Oh,
That's because it's redundant.
Okay.
If you look at
Section
the section, Article 3, or Article 2, then it's, or I'm sorry,
Article 4, Section 2.
Article 4, Section 2.
Okay.
New Section
Members must live, work.
I should have brought this up a long time ago. I did kind of bring it up like a few meetings ago about our purpose on the very first page, our mission, eliminating discrimination and bigotry. And while I love that, I wonder how like real or possible it is. And to say like, oh, we want to stop people from saying words that sound like bigotry. If we do that, then at the same time, that kind of seems like we would be trying to control free speech. And we wouldn't know who's the bigot in the room if they didn't say these things. And so I don't know if like we should have a conversation about it, or if we should just leave it as it is and continue trying. But just as a thought in mind. And does that make sense? I mean, I could be just totally.
I mean, if it's your vision, then it's always, vision's always kind of an aspirational.
Well, and bigotry is intolerance, and we're trying to eliminate intolerance. So I think, I personally am comfortable with the word, but again, if you want to propose the change, then that's something that we can all vote on at the next meeting.
At the next meeting, I'll think about it for the next meeting.
And I wouldn't do this part of the next, again, that seems to me to be a fairly, even above a substantive change, it's a change in our action vision that I think would be a phase 2 piece of what we're going at here.
The other thing is, I believe that it's in the ordinance. So I don't think we actually could change it.
Okay.
Unless we got the city council to change it.
Right.
So,
Can you clarify that phase 2, 1 and 2 that you were
The
mentioning?
bylaws can be changed at any time. If you look at, Article 8, Article 9 is amendments of bylaws. So we can bring forward bylaws changes at any point. I want us to move this set through, and so I don't want to bring in a whole bunch of very controversial amendments that might hold up the ability to take care of the business that we need to take care of that's at hand. And so if there are others that I think would prevent that process, then let's do another second.
so if anybody has substantive suggestions for the bylaws currently, or actually more administrative suggestions for the current bylaws, which would bring the current bylaws up to date with what we're actually currently doing, please let Alan or I know, or actually anybody on the executive, actually Alan, Danita, Diallo, or I know. Because we're going to be meeting again to try to finalize these, and we'll be incorporating people's suggestions into that final document for a vote in September, and we'll be getting it to you all, at least, I would say, 48 hours before the next, at least, well, we'll try to do it 72 hours before the next meeting. So, but feel free to make those suggestions. Okay. Community Discovery Committee, is there any way we can shave
Oh, it's gonna be
presentation
like 2
down to
minutes.
5 minutes? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
so don't worry. So the updates we have is that Jeff and Sarah, as you know, worked really awesomely in transcribing all the notes from the event. So they emailed that information to us. And now what the CDC committee is working on is just putting together the report that we are planning on sending out to the people that went to the event, and also sharing more formally with the commission, hopefully at the beginning of September. So we're working on that, and then we're also, we scheduled 2 meetings coming up, I think September 10th in the evening and the 13th for lunch here at OEHR, where we're gonna be inviting the representatives that said, at the round table, that said they wanted to be involved in some way for the forums. So we're gonna invite them to come and more as an advisory, like what's the input you have for us, and not necessarily what you say is what we'll do, but more like what do you think is relevant and important for us. And we will also love to see some of you or all of you attend one or two. We purposely put those two times closely because we know it's a short timeline between now and then, and we want to make it accessible for people. If you can't be on an evening, you can come hopefully during lunch, and we'll have basically the same meeting twice. So the Yellow will be sending that email to them, and he'll make sure that you guys also get it if you're interested and available to come and just get involved. And I'm sure that the issue that just came up earlier might be one of the focus of the forum. We don't know. We're just starting to think of the planning and development and coordination for that piece. And then after that, there will be a second kind of updated report on what happened at the forum. And right now, we're just thinking of having one forum, maybe an entire day, instead of having multiple forums. Because of time frames and all this stuff going on, we just want to be realistic and conscientious that it might be good to start with one and then use that moving forward, next year planning and tying it all in might be more realistic for us to achieve than trying to go full on 5 in like a month and a half.
Do you have a time for when the first forum would be?
Probably at the end of October.
Okay.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Yeah, sure.
Just to motivate your possible attendance as HRC members, our vision is that we are able to, we were all, including the public and organizations that are working on this with us, are able to dive further into thematic issues than we were able to do during the roundtable. So we're hoping that those of you working on thematic issues can be part of the planning process and get in early, earlier than later.
You'll send those dates and times.
The Yellow will be sending the email with links so people can say, I'll be able to join either or meeting. And then during those conversations, we'll start kind of digging in those thematic and things. details about how these public forum would look.
And the attendees received a thank you email today and an update that the report will be coming in September.
Any questions, comments?
Okay, I want to make sure we get public comment in, and I know Mike has signed up for public comment. Mike, would you like to get in front of your own camera over here and tell us what you got?
Do you want me to sit up there?
Yeah, get up here.
I'll get your shot for it.
Oh, see, now you're letting him play with the toys.
That's he's wanted for years.
Yeah,
right.
Do you want me to zoom in?
I did when others were sitting there.
All right, there you go. Wow, cameras are turned.
Just quickly, I had a couple issues about the homeless issue. I want to reiterate that what Alan was bringing up and Abdul mentioned, I agree exactly, especially what Abdul was saying about the whole sweep of that camp and the sidewalks. The issue, I just read some notes here real fast, so I'm going to go over. The issue about getting hit over the head, crimes happen all the time over downtown, and when they're attributed right to like Occupy or a homeless camp, it seems really a big stretch to try to say that group is doing it. Any more than a crime in a park, you would blame the park system for having crime in it. It's a shameful thing, nobody likes crime. Let's see. The media and the police have used these numbers to marginalize the people. I know that there was times when the police chief and everybody was putting out a lot of stuff, the public relations guy for when Occupy, and they would just list crime after crime that was happening in the downtown vicinity. Any little thing that went wrong, they would publicize it and help spin the whole attitude. One example was a guy lit paper boxes on fire. Had nothing really to do with Occupy, yet the big headlines was, arsonist burning stuff downtown at Occupy. Probably just showing that spin. There's reference to these travelers that come to town, and I keep hearing it. Rough group of people, maybe, I don't know, but they're still human beings. And to just marginalize them off as like they come and then they leave when it's cold, well, of course people are going to leave when it's cold. Who wants to sit around here when it's 12 degrees out? So they are human beings, and we are the Human Rights Commission. On the Human Rights website, there's a thing about news actions or news stories. Are you familiar with that? There was a thing about the sweep of the homeless issue, and it was a little concerning to me when I read it. It made references that you all, or the Equity and Human Rights Department, was there to oversee a humane way of removing people, with a lot of inference put on in that article to making it accessible for handicapped people, and without using handicapped people as a reason to. It was tricky how it was being written, and it was surprising. I don't think it was written by anybody in this room. It doesn't feel like it.
I wrote it.
You did?
Yes.
Okay. It just felt like that you guys, the HRC was.
It's not the HRC, it's the Office of Equity and Human Rights.
Okay, yeah. Was kind of condoning or making sure that people were removed humanely. While they, with nothing spoken of, they're protesting and have a right to be there. And then using handicap issues, which was the same thing that happened a lot with the whole reason for the sidewalk advisory type thing, was always brought up. Accessible for handicap, and yet we hardly hear. Now, I don't want to marginalize the handicap issues, and it's very important, but I don't want to step on the homeless people to try to point that out. It just seems like there's a little disconnect anyway, in the way that was written, or assuming that you guys are behind it because it helps.
The HRC is not behind it, just
okay,
making it
yeah.
clear.
Definitely, okay. Although it was up on the website there, and it made it look like that maybe we supported it.
No, it's on the Human Rights. It's not on the Human Rights Commission website. It is on the Office of Equity and Human Rights website.
Okay. The part, let's see, Abdul talked about the police. To meet the police involved that are with the CRC, or your oversight with the police committee part, to maybe discuss with the police what's going on, have a more of interaction on this issue, and visit the site was a good idea. I like the idea of his saying wearing shirts of some sign, so you are visible. You want to be more visible, the shirt idea is a great way to maybe just show, without a name tag, something you could put on and let people know that we are concerned and we're watching. Protesting's a right. Discomfort's happened. The gentleman that spoke about the uneasiness of getting in and out of the building. It's uneasy when there's a protest and discomforting issues are there, and it's going to happen. You need to be safe, but if it's awkward or, to me, I feel like, sorry. They keep pushing the people away. The homeless issues are keeping pushed back and pushed back. They make the sidewalk laws. The HRC spoke against that. They enacted it. Now they're claiming that whole advisory thing spent a lot of time at looking at what sidewalks could be deemed as access, and now all of a sudden, out of the blue, they just call all of City Hall access. They got that same kind of an attitude down there at Pioneer Square where they claim they own the whole sidewalk and everything. Now it's being pushed across the streets around the parks. It just takes the validity, it seems like, out of the whole advisory sidewalk issue. They keep pushing, this has been going on for years, and my smart aleck answer was, do they want to just push them down into the sewers? I say that because, hey, where are people to go? I know businesses have business rights and everything, but if you're homeless, you're very limited on where you can actually stand and not be told you have no business to be there. And then final on this issue here, R2D2 has been doing great things down there. All throughout the Sidewalk Advisory Committee meetings, I would hear story after story, people who could get sleep, people who could get jobs. Women who felt unsafe on the streets, they're being accosted, could spend the night there. The big thing on getting a good night's sleep and somewhere where you could go get out on the day to start your best foot forward. All these things, and everybody in the room that listens to these all acknowledge it, and yet we're still continually pushing against R2D2 and what they're trying to do. And the city finding them is terrible. It's disrespectful. That was on the homeless issues, and just, I got some sleep last night. I'm on vacation. I looked at the HRC website, and these are some things for Jeff, probably. There's still no Facebook link up there. That would be nice if you want to get some people looking at HRC things. I couldn't find it. The Equity main page has a Twitter feed running on there, but our HRC page doesn't.
Yeah, it's a functionality that's available for the main site, but not for the other pages, but we can certainly put a link up.
Put a link.
If you guys want to talk about this, that would be something
Okay.
for after the meeting.
The meeting notes are great, but when you put the agenda up like for today, then it disappears and you can't go back and look at any of the agendas in the past or see them. So like after tomorrow, I don't know exactly tomorrow, but a day or so from now, the agenda will disappear. July's notes aren't up there yet, so you'll have kind of just June to look at. You won't know what happened with the July issue meeting, so there's kind of a disconnect at the current state. I was thinking maybe keep the agendas up there. Let's see. Finding the email to contact you guys was really hard to find. It's down after that list. You had it up there of all everybody's names and it said like connect here, but it's kind of hard to connect or find the HRC from looking at it. Almost done here. There used to be some video links to where you could see the videos I've done. I've been putting them out there since 2008, since the beginning this thing started. Currently there's no link, and I'd like to make somehow an offer of, maybe you don't want to point to my website or something, there's a lot of other political issues there, but some way of helping get the transparency and showing what happened at the meeting available to the public. It was nice when there was a link to my website. Maybe if you guys want me to give you a copy of the video and you embed it yourself, however, but somehow I'd like to show what happens in these meetings to the public if they're able to see them. A thing on where the CRC people meet in the Kelly building, I think it is that a police type of facility? Yeah. There's been issues mentioned before, and Portland Cop Watch has brought up. It is kind of a police facility. It's a little bit uncomfortable for public to go into. I would even feel a little bit hesitant about walking in there. So just something to think about. I know you have quarterly go elsewhere, but having it right inside the police station has been talked about in the community as a little bit of a discomfort, slightly. One other thing, when I was out filming just recently on the street, someone asked the police chief about the HRC, And he seems to think that you guys are located in City Hall. So I don't know if the police chief even knows where your office is, but it was kind of like, come on, you know.
All right, Mike, we've got to ask you.
Okay,
I'm
well,
sorry.
I'm sorry to drag everybody
No, it's-
along.
no, it's fine. We just-
And that's all I have to say for the moment.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Levon, did you want to public comment today?
You know what, I'm just gonna make a quick one,
Okay.
because I think that this is really important to cover. I'm just gonna do it from here.
That's fine.
And just say that the word handicap is, in general, really looked down upon within the disability community. It has a very bad and negative history that has to do with begging. And so in the future, if we could use language that uses the word disability, that would be wonderful, because I think a lot of people aren't aware that there's a reason why we've moved to the word disability. So that's, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll share it too.
Okay, we are at 6:30. I think that, Alan, would it be okay to send out an email with an update on the work plan?
Definitely.
And we can handle
Let's say one
it.
thing about it, you have it in front of you, it's been updated, please read through it and see if you have any other comments. I think it's a document that will be mostly handled by the executive. But then, I think Diallo has important stuff on it.
And we do need to have Diallo brief us on the upcoming Emily Gottfried Human Rights Awards.
So we just got, I just got an email from Alan about it. And basically, by the next meeting, we need to have volunteers for the planning committee for that. It's not gonna be on the 10th. Is it gonna be on the 10th? No, yeah, it's not gonna be on the 10th. It says on the 10th here, but I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's actually gonna be on the 3rd or the 5th now. And so, by the next meeting, we need to have some volunteers for planning
I need to
committee.
let Northwest Natural know when you all decide what day, like,
I think
need
it's
to let them know this
Tuesday.
week.
This week?
I think
Okay.
that most of us agreed for Tuesdays for the 3rd.
Tuesday?
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that right now, if we could.
Yeah,
Can,
for the 3rd or the 5th.
we can't have, December 10th is Human Rights Day, we can't have, the facility won't allow us to have it on that day. Northwest Natural is contributing the facility and the lunch.
Right.
So I don't think that we should,
Oh,
not,
push it.
I think we should move venues, you know,
Yeah.
because, so anyway, we'll have it on the 3rd or the 5th, because Northwest Natural will provide the room and the lunch.
Right.
So is there a preference for either one?
Just so everybody knows, the 3rd, or the 4th is our monthly HRC meeting, so that makes a difference for everybody. So,
We can move the meeting.
we can move the meeting, but,
Well, if we have it the day before, then we can talk about it the day after.
But if we have it the day after, we can also announce it at the meeting and potentially promote it further.
A lot of events that I have been to that have been really well attended always on Thursday or Friday. Always less attendance on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know why, but I would recommend Thursday, then Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, so late night Wednesday meeting, and then early morning Thursday. Lunch.
early morning. I think you'll start at
Those people,
11.
those people planning it will be there early, I'm sure.
So it's going to be the 5th?
The 5th is fine with me. Does anybody have any preferences? Jeff, I think you prefer the 3rd.
I don't have a preference.
I think it would be good to be able to discuss it the night before.
Okay, so the 5th is okay with you? Okay. Anybody else prefer the 3rd? Okay, let's do it on the 5th.
I'll let Northwest Natural know.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Jeff, for contacting Northwest Neutral. And they are donating space and food.
And the food.
Just like last year. So, amazing. Thanks, Jeff.
Who has a question?
Awesome.
Oh, I just wanted to add, maybe it's good that it's not on the 10th, because that gives us an opportunity to go out and visit other events.
Yeah.
And spreads it out during the week.
And more people are likely to not be attending other events.
Right.
So, Okay, so that'll be on the 5th. So anybody who's interested in volunteering, I am one, I volunteer, I will be on that committee. And so will Alan. This is the Emily Gottfried, first Emily Gottfried Human Rights Awards, second annual Human Rights Awards. And Emily is going to be getting the Lifetime Achievement Award posthumously. We're going to make an effort at getting Alan Rosenblum to be there again, along with Emily's family. And so it should be a great event.
So I would recommend anytime we write it out, I missed it on the agenda, that we call it
Right.
the Emily G. Gottfried.
Right. So thanks, everybody. The one thing I do want to mention is that on August 27th, 4th is the March on Washington events commemoration that is going to be going on at City Hall and then down into the park on the waterfront. The AMA is the primary sponsor of the event, and we are going to participate in any way that we can. Amy and Linda and I were at the initial planning meeting. I think Linda went to, did you also go to the second meeting, coordination meeting? Linda did. And Joanne Hardesty has asked, is doing some organization work, and so I'm trying to help her out. If anybody's interested in volunteering that day to help out with any number of things, please let me know. It's going to be a great event. There are going to be, I would imagine most of City Council will be there taking part. It's going to be a diverse event. It's going to be people from all over the city who represent all different interests taking part and recognizing it. It's 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. So it's a big day for human rights, and if everybody could try to get out, having a big HRC presence would be really awesome. And I would love to be able to dedicate some volunteers to it. So if you would let me know, if you'd be willing to even be there for half an hour, I want to get names on the list. I want to get people with name tags out there. I think we should really try to be a big part of it if we can.
Polo shirts.
So, and Letterman's jackets.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Any other announcements for the good of the order? Nothing?
I had my first liaison meeting with Commissioner Fritz just this afternoon, went very well. Too much to go into detail about, but 1.5 hour was too short, we both agreed. We will be meeting bi-monthly, set, but then half-an-hour meetings as things come up, we agreed to.
Awesome.
And I can give you guys more information.
That's great.
Later, yeah.
Thank you very much for doing that. I hope that program works out well for us. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Welcome to our new commissioners, and goodbye, Sarah. We appreciate you. And we'll
Thank
miss
you for having me.